Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Alright, so we're sailing towards the end of the year and we're almost at episode 300, Steve. I thought, would the day ever come? Of course it would, because we knew we were going to keep doing it for all this time. And we'll get to it at some point.
But how is it even possible, Ben?
Exactly. We haven't killed over yet, I guess. That's probably the answer. So, all right, we're going to continue on with a recurring theme here because we've been talking about, the iPhone and the iPhone 15, etc. the last couple of weeks from a couple of different angles. But apologies again, but we're going to have to cover it only because I haven't come across this rather interesting video from the YouTube channel In-Depth Tech Reviews. It's only about 5 or 6 minutes. And
video, man. Very good. I highly recommend it.
Absolutely. And essentially and I encourage everyone to check it out. But essentially it's, a criticism of both Apple and YouTube tech reviewers effectively. And I just thought it came across as a bit of a breath of fresh air because if you watch enough of the YouTube tech reviewers on YouTube, it's not that they don't produce good content that is fun to watch or whatever, and it's not that you can't pick up things from them where they don't make good points. But he was making the point that Apple really hasn't been innovating in the last couple of years, and that's not. And I think we kind of said this when the iPhone 15 came out. This is the first phone that gave me no desire to want to upgrade to it, and in fact has probably given me every reason to just push my upgrade cycle out for 3 or 4 years because the changes are that minute or not significant enough to warrant those regular upgrades, like maybe from the first decade of the iPhone. And he was kind of making that point. The iPhone 15, if you really look at it, is probably one of their most boring updates that they've come up with. That's not to say it's not a great phone. It's just that if you're kidding yourself if you think that there was some massive leap forward between the iPhone 14 series and the iPhone 15 series, for instance. And then concurrent with that was the view that a lot of YouTube tech reviewers, they're looking at the algorithm, they know what gets the clicks, they know what gets the views, and they would go through and they might have even had that messaging at the beginning when they were reviewing these phones, but then they come back around and say, oh, I've spent a bit more time with this phone and I was wrong. This is a huge upgrade year on year. It's fantastic, and there's a lot of play there because Apple is obviously leveraging these guys and girls to market iPhones because basically they're free ads in a way, actually I'd argue they're almost better than ads because you've got someone that's actually endorsing it, for lack of a better term. So and Apple's kind of encouraging all of this as well, and to the point of they tend to at their events focus on these YouTube tech reviewers rather than traditional outlets. I remember Steve Jobs was always proud whenever the Wall Street Journal would give a good comment about the whatever it is that they were working on. At the last event, the top tech YouTube reviewer was actually quoted in the event rather than a mainstream publication. So a lot of that, you take all of that into account, and I kind of see where this guy was coming from. It's that's kind of a breath of fresh air to just call it out for what it is, and it's probably a good message to give. I don't think it's not lost on us where we know what we're talking about here, but the average person in the street isn't following this. They just want to pick up a phone. They want to know if it's better than what they've got now. Should they upgrade, etc.? And I think it plays to that point that they're trying to sway people like that when they should be a bit more honest about it.
Totally agree. Look, let's be upfront. No iPhone is a bad phone, but for someone who's been complaining about his iPhone 13 and been into the Apple store for iPhone 14 and iPhone 15, I don't really think there's any difference between the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 15. I even go back that far. So that's a real lack of innovation. It's very hard to cheer the USB-C port in an iPhone 15 when my mid-range LG phone had it in 2018. And in the video, he makes the point that Apple could have swapped to USB-C 7 years ago, which probably if Steve Jobs had been alive, they would have. You know, you wonder about these things. You wonder why there's a lack of innovation. There's a lot of glitz and glamour. There's a lot of sizzle, but very little sausage in the iPhone division these days. And I think that that's just a division that's got a little bit too big for its boots. Sure, it makes a lot of money. Maybe Timmy Cook's a little bit scared of them. I don't know. But I'd be sitting them down, having a word with them and forcing them to do something that truly is exciting rather than stuff that everyone else has already attempted.
And I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we actually mentioned this in our episode back when we were talking about the iPhone 15 when it came out, is that it's now matured to a product where it's maybe to think of it more broadly like a car. You know, you don't get a car every day. You don't get a car for every upgrade. You just get a car when the old car breaks down to the point that it's not usable anymore. So that's kind of where iPhones and smartphones, I think, are kind of where they're at the moment. And it kind of just... I actually wonder where the future of the YouTubers are going as well in terms of, maintaining their audience, etc. Because, the videos are starting to become quite repetitive as well.
Yeah, look, I think that's precisely why you see them, down on the iPhone when it comes out. Oh, it's a disappointment. And then 2 weeks later, it's not a disappointment. And I think because, that's what you have to do now. That's what the algorithm is actually telling them to do. And I think, as we've spoken so many times about social media, I think now the algorithms are starting to direct the content. And the echo chambers, which we were talking about, around people's opinions, are now coming to content. And it's going to come to a point where every piece of content is going to be the same, whether it's about cooking, building, technology, cars. I think you will even see, and I think the car analogy is a good one now, it won't be long before you see, your EV, once it's sort of done, just parked on the side of the road and someone else will go and buy another one on a plan. It's, it's just, they're just devices. And I think that we're seeing this in so many different sectors. And I think we're about to hit a content singularity at some point where all comedy will be the same, all drama will be the same. And actually, if you look at a lot of the content online now, there's a lot of similarities.
Absolutely. One last thing before we move on, because I only just remembered it. There's a very similar video about the MacBooks as well. So, I can't remember. I'll have to dig it out of my history, but I think I saw it a couple of weeks ago, where he basically, maybe not as harsh as this guy, but he kind of made the same point that probably 95% of people don't need anything more than an M1 MacBook Air. And that for all of the and it's funny because I've seen seeping into even like the mainstream tech YouTuber discussions that a lot of them are just saying that now, like with the M3s out, as if like it's a new angle, like go onto Amazon and get it for 25% off. M1 MacBook Air will just satisfy most of your needs, and if you really do need more, I know, for instance, that, I'm the 14-inch MacBook Pro guy because I want the, once or twice a week that I edit 4K videos on it for it to be seamless. So that's why I get that one. Otherwise, I'd be on a MacBook Air as well.
But you see, I think this reflects once again and where we're going with content. Everything's content now. Your intelligence, your market intelligence on the product you buy is through reviews, and these reviews are manipulated by and large, whether it's accommodation, air flights, locations, retail products, it doesn't matter anymore. And I think people are basically outsourcing their own expertise. They don't trust themselves anymore, and they'd rather have somebody who looks great on Instagram tell them how good a phone is or a product is. rather than actually learn that for themselves. And I think this is endemic in our society. I'm not sure it's a good thing.
Oh, well, I guess we'll watch this space and see where it goes. But we'll still be talking talking it like it is or something. Is that how we'll approach it? Or maybe we'll get sucked into the algorithm as well.
We're anti-algorithm.
Absolutely. Speaking of hitting the algorithm, let's talk about chips, because that brings pleasure to everyone's face. I came across these stories about potato chips only because I've been thinking about this recently. I do enjoy the odd potato chip, but unfortunately I have to cut back these days because the body's not quite handling them and processing them as well as what they did in yesteryear. But it's interesting that it's probably an example of processing food. They are in effect empty calories, and it's a pleasure to eat. Which is why we eat them. But it's interesting the amount of work that goes into creating all the flavors, etc. And, there was a couple of articles. There was one on the ABC talking about, some of the classic flavors like barbecue and salt and vinegar and chicken. I have started to see in the supermarket these days these odd flavors start showing up. Like they mentioned cheeseburger in here. There was a couple of other ones that I was like, I don't know about that, but I guess fair enough if people want to try that. Like meat flavors, pork rib flavors, all this other stuff, and maybe back in the day, chicken and salt and vinegar and barbecue were considered weird compared to just salt. Which I still enjoy the good old just original chips too, and I just find it. I don't know. Maybe it was just a reminder that one, they're unhealthy, and that's why I have to kind of cut back on eating them. But the other thing is how much they're processed, and it's almost like it's in the shape of a chip. Yeah, maybe made with potato, in quotation marks, kind of thing. That's kind of what stuck out to me. That and they're so well marketed in the supermarkets and put front and center that people will fall for it every time to get them, and we're consuming them. I'm picking on the chip, I guess, in this case, but there's so many foods like that you got to wonder, it's you really are fighting an uphill battle if health's a concern for you, if a lot of this is getting bombarded at you all the time.
Well, that's right. I mean, we're talking about a highly addictive product, maybe it's not that far off crack, who knows, but, chips are delicious. I don't know of anyone who doesn't like them. So, it'd be quite easy to become addicted, particularly the flavors. And they've known for a long time, we've covered this before, in processing you add sugar and salt because they're the textures they're the flavors that really hook you to something. And texture is also really important, and chips have an excellent crunchy texture, that just, everything from opening the pack right through to rummaging around in it and munching away on them, strong, salty, savoury flavours with real audible sort of sound effects to go along with it. What's not to love? So I think if you go more broadly to the food processing, it's funny. Over the years, they've done so many, in fact, tests, particularly through wine, but also through beverages. And now a lot of this technology or understanding is coming through to generally, foods like chips, but not just chips, everything to chocolate bars. If you notice now, who just gets plain old milk chocolate anymore? Oh, no, there'll be something added in, and that'll change the texture or the flavors or the experience. So these are very, very, astute, very clever, very scientific, and very well tested, ploys to make the food more enjoyable and ultimately more addictive.
Absolutely. All right, Steve.
The most interesting is that Ben, just that the base flavour for your chips is really MSG, which is good because it's low on sodium. and it doesn't really affect other flavors. So then they can add other chemicals that create flavors, aromas, and taste into there, and you get the full savouriness with any other flavour highlights that you require.
Well said like that. I'm going to go down to the supermarket now and load up. Have a bad eating day or something like that. A cheat day.
Try lots of different flavours as well. You'll find actually, I won't say which ones, but there are a number of them that are just exactly the same flavour or very similar, just in different packets.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like a fun thing to test for the afternoon, a Saturday afternoon, I should say.
It is a good thing. I've done it a few times with friends. Lots of fun.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll wrap it up there. So don't forget to check out our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo feeds, RSS feeds too, and you can watch us on any and all of your devices. And we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.